The wire transfer went through at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, and with it 40 years of Matthias Carver's life disappeared into a numbered account he'd never heard of. By midnight, his name would be erased from every board, every deed, every legacy he'd built. The ransom wasn't money. It was annihilation. My name is Harriet Sinclair. I'm not part of this story. I'm only the one telling it. Matthias Carver didn't look like a man worth $3 billion when he left the charity gala that night. He looked tired. The kind of tired that comes from smiling at people who want things from you, shaking hands that feel like they're taking pieces of you away one grip at a time. His driver Emil had called in sick. Some stomach thing. Matthias didn't mind. He liked driving himself sometimes. The Tesla was quiet, the roads empty, and for 20 minutes he could pretend he was just a man going home, not an empire walking on two legs. The parking garage beneath the Meridian Hotel was nearly deserted. His footsteps echoed off concrete as he walked toward his car, keys in hand, thinking about the speech he'd given. Something about innovation and responsibility. He'd said it 100 times before. He didn't hear them approach. The first thing he felt was the sting in his neck. Sharp, clinical, immediate. His hand went to the spot reflexively, fingers finding a small dart embedded in his skin. He turned, vision already swimming, and saw 3 figures in dark clothing, faces obscured by simple black masks. No words. No theatrics. His knees buckled. The keys clattered on the concrete. Strong hands caught him before he fell, and the world tilted sideways as they dragged him toward a white van with no plates. The last thing he registered before the darkness took him completely was the sound of his own phone, vibrating in his pocket. Someone calling. Someone who would get no answer. He woke to the smell of mildew and old concrete. His head throbbed. His mouth tasted like copper. When he tried to move, he realized his wrists were zip-tied to a metal chair bolted to the floor. The room was small, windowless, lit by a single bare bulb that swung slightly from the ceiling, casting moving shadows across walls covered in peeling paint. No sound except his own breathing. Matthias forced himself to think through the fog in his skull. Kidnapping. Professional. They'd used a sedative, not a blow to the head. That meant they wanted him functional. Wanted him conscious for something. The door opened. A woman entered. Mid-30s, athletic build, wearing black tactical clothing and a plain surgical mask. Behind her, a man with a camera on a tripod. Neither spoke as they set up, adjusting angles, checking the light. The woman finally looked at him. Her eyes were gray, empty of emotion. "Mr. Carver," she said, "you're going to make a video." His voice came out rough. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." She smiled behind the mask. He could see it in her eyes. "Actually, we do. That's the entire point." The man with the camera pressed record. "Read this," the woman said, holding up a tablet. Matthias looked at the screen. His blood went cold. The message wasn't a ransom demand for money. It was a series of instructions that would systematically dismantle everything he'd built. Transfer of controlling shares in Carver Industries. Public admission to fabricated crimes. Resignation letters. Dissolution agreements. Every sentence was a calculated strike at a different pillar of his empire. By the time he finished reading, there would be nothing left. No company. No reputation. No legacy. Just a man who destroyed himself on camera. "You're insane," he said quietly. "I'll never." "You will." The woman's voice was flat, certain. "Because if you don't, we move to Protocol 2. And Protocol 2 involves your daughter." Matthias went very still. "Lydia," the woman continued, pulling up a photo on the tablet. His daughter, 26 years old, leaving her apartment in Brooklyn that morning. Columbia Law, 3rd year. Lives alone. Very predictable schedule. The rage that flooded through him was pure and cold. "If you touch her." "We won't have to." The woman set the tablet down. "You're going to do exactly what we say. You're going to read every word. You're going to sign every document we put in front of you. And you're going to do it within the next 6 hours, because that's when the first set of transfers must be completed, or the next phase begins." She leaned closer. "Here's what you need to understand, Mr. Carver. We don't want your money. We want your erasure. We want you to unmake yourself. And we've spent 18 months planning how to make you do it." Matthias stared at her, mind racing. 6 hours. Not enough time for any rescue that wouldn't risk Lydia. Not enough time to trace anything. They'd planned for that. But 18 months was a long time. A long time to plan, yes. Also a long time to make mistakes. To leave patterns. To trust the wrong person. Who sent you? He asked. The woman laughed, a genuine sound, almost friendly. You still think this is about enemies? About revenge? She shook her head. Mr. Carver, this is about money. Just not the kind you're used to dealing with. Yow. She lifted the tablet again. Let's begin with your confession. The camera's red light blinked like a heartbeat. Matthias read the first document. A confession to securities fraud he'd never committed. His voice steady, controlled. The woman watched him like a scientist observing an experiment. When he finished, she handed him a tablet with a digital signature pad. This transfers 51% of Carver Industries to a shell corporation. Sign. He didn't move. You said 6 hours. I want proof my daughter is safe first. The woman nodded to her partner. He pulled up a live feed. Lydia in her apartment, studying at her desk, headphones on. Nowhere. Satisfied. Matthias signed. The next document dissolved his voting rights in the Carver Foundation. His charity, the one that funded medical research education programs. His life's other work. He signed. Then came the emails. Pre-written messages to board members, investors, the press. Each one more damaging than the last. Admissions of corruption. Accusations against partners. Scorched earth. Send them, the woman ordered. These will destroy innocent people, Matthias said quietly. Yes. No hesitation. Send them, or we send something worse to your daughter's address. He sent them. 2 hours passed. The woman's phone buzzed constantly. Confirmations, transfers completing, dominoes falling. Matthias watched his empire collapse in real time through the reflection in her eyes. But he was also watching something else. The way she checked her phone. The timing. Every notification made her slightly more relaxed, slightly less vigilant. She was waiting for something. A final confirmation maybe. The big payoff. And her partner, the man with the camera, kept glancing at his watch. Not nervous. Impatient. How much are you getting paid? Matthias asked suddenly. The woman looked up, surprised. That's not your concern. Humor me. I'm curious what I'm worth to whoever hired you. She smiled. 20 million. Split 2 ways. Not bad for 18 months of planning. And what happens when they decide you're a loose end? Her smile faded. Careful, Mr. Carver. I'm just thinking out loud, he said. You've orchestrated the perfect crime. Untraceable, irreversible. But you've also seen everything. The documents, the accounts, the structure. You're the only people who know how this worked. The man behind the camera shifted uncomfortably. That makes you valuable, Matthias continued. Or it makes you a liability. Depends on who you're working for. We know who we're working for, the woman snapped. But something flickered in her eyes. Doubt. Matthias leaned forward as far as his restraints allowed. Do you? Because 20 million split 2 ways seems cheap. For destroying a $3 billion empire. The woman's phone buzzed. She looked at it, then went pale. What? The man asked. He showed him the screen. Matthias couldn't see it, but he saw their reactions. Confusion. Then fear. That's not the confirmation code, the man said. I know. Then what is it? The woman looked at Matthias, and for the first time she looked uncertain. It's a countdown. 30 minutes. Countdown to what? She didn't answer. Instead she typed rapidly, then waited. No response. The man set down the camera. Call Voss. I've been calling. He's not answering. Then call the backup number. There is no backup number. That was the protocol. One contact, one channel, untraceable. Matthias watched them unravel. Let me guess, he said quietly. The person who hired you just went silent. And now you're sitting in a room with evidence of dozens of federal crimes, holding a kidnapped billionaire, and you have no idea what that countdown means. If you're still following this story, like, subscribe and share. The woman spun to face him. You did something. What did you do? Me? I've been tied to a chair for 3 hours. Before. You did something before we took you. Matthias smiled for the first time. Maybe. Or maybe the person who hired you isn't who you think they are. The lights went out. In the darkness someone screamed. Emergency lights flickered on, dim red pulsing. The woman had a gun out, sweeping the room. Her partner pressed against the wall by the door, breathing hard. "Stay calm," she hissed. "Power grid failure, that's all." "That's not all." Matthias's voice cut through the darkness. "Check your phone." She did. Her face went white. "The transfers. They're reversing." "Impossible," the man said. "Look for yourself." He grabbed the tablet. Matthias watched him scroll, watched the panic spread. Every transaction they'd completed in the past 3 hours was unwinding. Shares returning. Emails being retracted. Documents voiding themselves. "This doesn't make sense," the woman whispered. "These were blockchain-secured transfers. Irreversible. Unless they were never real to begin with," Matthias said. She turned the gun toward him. "Explain. Now. You grabbed me from the Meridian parking garage. But did you ever confirm I was actually at the gala?" Silence. "Emil, my driver, called in sick." "Convenient. The garage cameras, did you check if they were working? The Tesla I walked to, did you verify the plates?" The man's voice cracked. "We tracked your phone. Your actual phone." "You tracked a phone," Matthias corrected. "One that I've been carrying for 3 weeks specifically for people like you. One that connects to a parallel network my security team built. Everything you've done tonight, every transfer, every signature, every email went through that network." The woman's hand trembled. "You're lying." "Am I? Then why are your transfers reversing? Why did your contact disappear? Why is there a countdown you don't understand?" She moved closer, gun aimed at his chest. "If this is fake, if we don't actually have leverage." "You never did." Matthias's voice was cold now, precise. "Lydia isn't in Brooklyn. She's in Geneva, has been for 2 weeks. The feed you showed me, pre-recorded footage from last month. Your 18 months of planning was built on information I fed you through controlled leaks." The man backed toward the door. "We need to leave. Now." "You can't," Matthias said. "That countdown, it's not for me. The building is surrounded. FBI, specifically the Cybercrimes Division. They've been tracking your organization for 7 months." "We don't have an organization." "Yes, you do. 23 operatives, 6 active kidnapping plots, all targeting high-net-worth individuals. You thought you were independent contractors. You're actually part of the Voss network." The woman lowered her gun slightly. "How do you know that name?" "Because Victor Voss tried this exact play on another billionaire last year. That billionaire was my college roommate. He didn't survive." Matthias's voice hardened. "So I spent 8 months becoming bait. I let Voss's people believe they'd found vulnerabilities in my security. Let them think Emil was corruptible. Let them think they were hunting me. If you're still with me, make sure you're subscribed." "You set us up," the woman breathed. "I set up Voss. You two are just the evidence." The man lunged for the door. It didn't open. He pounded on it, screaming. "Reinforced," Matthias said calmly. "Locks from the outside. Your countdown? That's how long until federal agents come through that door with flashbangs and assault rifles." The woman raised her gun again, but her hands were shaking badly now. "We can still kill you. Make this mean something. You could, but then you'd just be murderers. Right now you're witnesses. And witnesses who cooperate get deals. Why would we cooperate with you? Not with me. With the FBI. Because I'm not the only target. Voss has 6 other operations in motion right now. You help them stop those, you might see daylight again before you're 60. The man slid down the wall, head in his hands. "We're so fucked." The woman stared at Matthias, and slowly understanding replaced fear. "You were never afraid. Not for 1 second." "I was terrified," he said quietly. "But not of you. Of failing. Of letting Voss do this to someone else." She lowered the gun. "The countdown. 12 minutes. And if we cooperate? I tell them you were responsive to negotiation. That you didn't harm me. That you're willing to testify." She looked at her partner, then back at Matthias. "Calculating. Surviving. What do you need?" Matthias smiled. "Everything. Names, locations, communication protocols. Every detail about Voss's network. And if we give you this?" The door's lock clicked. Heavy footsteps in the hallway outside. Matthias leaned back in his chair. "Then maybe, You get to find out who you'd be without him. The door burst open. Federal agents flooded the room, armor, rifles shouting. The woman and her partner dropped to the floor, hands behind their heads. Matthias stayed perfectly still as they cut his zip ties. "Mr. Carver, are you injured?" "No." He stood slowly, rubbing his wrists. "These two are cooperative. They have information on the Voss network." The lead agent, a woman named Chin, nodded curtly. "We'll debrief them separately." As they zip-tied the kidnappers and led them out, the woman looked back at Matthias. Not with hatred, with something closer to respect. "You really planned all of this?" "Every second," he said. He laughed, sharp, bitter. "We never had a chance." "No, you didn't." The debriefing took 11 hours. Matthias sat in an FBI conference room, his attorney beside him, walking them through the entire operation. How he'd discovered the Voss network through his friend's murder. How he'd spent months creating vulnerabilities in his own security. How he'd built a phantom digital infrastructure that looked real enough to fool sophisticated criminals. The parallel network was the key, he explained. Every action they took appeared to work. Transfers, signatures, emails. But it was all contained. A simulation running in real time. Agent Chin studied him across the table. "You risked your life on the assumption they'd follow your script." "Not an assumption. A certainty. I studied their previous operations. They're meticulous, but they follow patterns. They use fear and time pressure, but they're not violent unless forced. I gave them exactly what they expected." "And if you were wrong?" Matthias met her gaze. "Then my real daughter, who actually was in Geneva under protection, would have received a very specific message. And my real security team, who were positioned around this building the entire time, would have extracted me." Chin shook her head slowly. "You had 4 backup plans." 7, actually." His attorney cleared his throat. "My client has been more than cooperative. Is he free to go?" Chin stood, extending her hand to Matthias. "Your cooperation led to 6 arrests tonight. 3 more kidnappings prevented. We'll need you for testimony, but yes, you're free." Outside, dawn was breaking over the city. Matthias stood on the steps of the federal building, breathing cold air, watching the sky turn gold. His phone buzzed. A video call from Geneva. Lydia's face appeared, eyes red from crying. "Dad, they just told me what happened." "Why didn't you?" "Because if you'd known, you would have tried to stop me. Or worse, you would have worried." "Of course I would have worried. You let yourself get kidnapped." "I let myself be the solution," he corrected gently. "Victor Voss would have kept operating. More people would have died. Someone had to stop him." She wiped her eyes. "You're insane." "Probably." He smiled. "But I'm also done. The testimony will take a few months, and then I'm stepping back. Letting the next generation run Carver Industries." "Dad, you finish law school. Join the board if you want. Or don't. Build something entirely yours. But the empire." He looked back at the federal building. "I nearly destroyed it once this week. That's enough for me." Lydia studied his face through the screen. "You look different." "I feel different." And he did. Lighter somehow. "I spent 40 years building something I thought mattered. Turns out what matters is making sure it can't be used to hurt people. Even by me." That's very philosophical for someone who just orchestrated an elaborate FBI sting operation. He laughed, genuine surprised. "Your mother would have said the same thing. She would have called you an idiot. Then been incredibly proud." "Yes." His voice softened. "She would have." They talked for a few more minutes about nothing important. About everything that mattered. When they hung up, Matthias pocketed his phone and started walking. No car service. No security detail. Just a man walking through a city waking up. His empire was intact. The Voss network was dismantled. 7 backup plans he'd never needed. And for the first time in years, he had absolutely no idea what he would do tomorrow. It felt perfect. 3 months later, Agent Chin called him. "Voss is in custody. Picked him up in Morocco. Your witnesses were credible. Every piece of intelligence checked out." "Good. We recovered files from his operation. 47 planned targets over the next 2 years. Including 2 senators and a federal judge." Matthias closed his eyes. "How many did we save?" "All of them." He exhaled slowly. "Then it was worth it." There's one more thing, Chen said. The woman from your kidnapping, she's been helping us, really cooperating. She asked if you'd consider writing a letter for her sentencing hearing. Matthias thought about that. About choices and consequences. About people becoming more than their worst decisions. Send me the details. Really? Everyone deserves a chance to be better than they were. Even her. Even me. He hung up and looked out his office window. Carver Industries hummed below him, 40 floors of people building things that mattered. But now there were safeguards. Oversight. Systems to prevent what he'd almost let happen. Not an empire anymore. Something better. Something earned. And if this story kept you guessing, you know what to do.